Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Thanks so much for being here with us on this Thursday of Easter week. A very blessed and happy Easter to you. One of the great things about being Catholic, we get to say Happy Easter for 8 days because it's still Easter Sunday for us, in a manner of speaking. But then once that's over, we still get to say Happy Easter all the way until Pentecost. So it's one of the great joys of being Catholic. And we're just and there's so many of you, too, who have recently come into the church. We've enjoyed getting to hear from you. If you want to call today, you're very welcome. We'd love to hear about it. You coming into the church at the Easter Vigil. We've got a wonderful show for you today, a little bit of special change up for a Thursday show. Second hour, Jimmy will be here and we'll do open forum the second hour. First hour, I want to introduce you to two folks that we've had such a great pleasure getting to know today here at Catholic Answers, came to visit us, and we wanted to share them with you, and we'll talk a bit. Our topic for the hour will be about the availability of God, the presence of God, and how we can be grounded in God even in this chaotic world. And these women should know. They are sisters of the... Oh, now here, see if I get it right, sister. I got it wrong last time we did this. Sisters of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus of Los Angeles. No.
Carmelite
sisters of the...
You're really close.
I know it.
You get really close every time.
Oh, you two are like good cop, bad cop. Sister Maria Goretti, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being with us.
So wonderful to be here.
And Sister Regina Marie, and welcome to you too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we did a little interview earlier with Sister Regina Marie about the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So if you like our podcast Focused, you can find that there sometime between now and the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So first of all, I was so happy to come into the chapel today for Mass, and it's like we really heartily pray the prayer of St. Michael several times a day here. And so it was like walking in and finding two Marines on the battlefield. It's like, there they are in their Carmelite, all ready to go up front. And so it's just beautiful to have you here. I also think it's, as the father of two daughters, I'm always happy when there are women religious around that people can see and talk to, because it's less common. I mean, I went to Catholic school when I was a kid. I was taught by the sisters. My kids, went through all of their years of Catholic schooling. Not a single religious sister did they have as a teacher during that time. So thank you both for your saying yes to your vocation and for saying yes to be here with us.
Both of them are joys to say yes.
Amen.
Oh, well, that's very nice. And so I'll tell you what, I want to ask you a few things, and then we'll let the callers get in. You can call if you'd like to talk with the sisters, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. But I want to ask you, and either of you can answer as you see fit, take turns or however you want to do it, but about this idea of the presence of God, being able to be grounded in the presence of God, because the world, as most people, I think, experience it now, the modern world is as much a trial as it is a gift. And that it's a burden to get through the day for many people. So how am I supposed to experience in that the ready, available presence of God?
That's like asking a fish if it can find the ocean.
Explain that. I have not done that, but that is the level of interview I usually conduct, sister. But yeah, explain that to me.
We're swimming in Him. We exist because He thinks of us, because He holds us in existence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just we get trapped in our own inner world of what we think is reality. It's a very narrow world. But that's not the real, it's not the complete world. It's not the true world.
But even the person who might accept that and say, yes, sister is right about that. I know that in a theological sense, in a practical sense, may not know how to experience that.
Mm-hmm. And I would say again, it's going back to what we know to be true. And our world has told us that what's real is our feelings. Our feelings are the real. Our feelings are true. Well, our feelings are a gift, and our feelings are our feelings. But we still know objective truth. And I know that I did not give myself life.
Yes. Right.
And I know that I don't sustain myself with life and breath. It's given to me. And so when I can start to ground myself in what is true, what is, not just what I think or just what I perceive, I am moving one step closer to knowing a real person who has revealed himself, and he is known, and he can be known. St. Paul talks about it all the way through all of his major epistles about the mystery. And we know that the mystery has been revealed, and the mystery is open to all people. It was meant for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a certain sense, the person who then, because kind of, if I say I'm searching for God, there is an underlying thing of I don't feel his presence. That's why I'm searching.
Yes.
So the first step is an intellectual step, almost, you're saying, is to say, well, just believe, first of all, that he is present. You know that he is. And then what will my feelings come along with that, or what will happen?
Once we start to desire,
Mm-hmm.
he reveals himself. Mm-hmm. Thomas Aquinas gives us the proofs that there is a God. Mm-hmm. Reason tells us.
Yeah.
Faith tells us that he's fully entered into our human condition because he said so. We've seen him. They're eyewitnesses. That's what we're hearing in the Gospels this whole week. People saw him crucified. People encountered him afterwards. And they're so convinced of it, they were willing to give their own lives in defense of that truth.
Well, did you, and maybe Sister Maria Goretti, you would want to answer this, but did you have, like, are you and the other sisters there? I think there's about 120 of you
Yes.
in your monastery, and did you have to flee from the world, run away in order to feel this presence of God? Is that what happens? Is that the dynamic of it?
No, I mean, not for myself. In terms of fleeing, the one thing that actually came to me when you said that, it made me think of St. Elizabeth of the Trinity. The fleeing will come from all of those things that distract us from the presence of God. But God is present in the world. He's present right here where we are right now. So it's actually a fleeing to he who dwells within. That was the first thing that came to mind.
I see.
Because Elizabeth talks a lot about how the Blessed Trinity, he's right here in our souls. So yes, it's beautiful when we can go into the church and be with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, in adoration. But the genius, the riches of Carmel actually form us in the truth that all we have to do is flee to him right here in the depths of our own heart. And he's with us always, and he's promised that I will be with you always until the end of time. So I don't have a sense at all of, I'm not running away from anything, I'm running to. Uh-huh. I'm running to the one who dwells with me constantly. And then the joy, which Sister shared earlier, of our mission as Carmelite sisters, to stand in the presence of the living God, and with Mary, to make known to the world the love of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So I am taking this treasure that dwells within, and I am bringing him with me absolutely everywhere. I never leave his presence, and he never leaves mine. And I'm hopefully always trying to run to him and not away from something, but to God.
Yes.
Who I will also encounter in the person in front of me and whatever he's calling me to. So I don't know if that's helpful at all. But
it's very helpful because I identify it with it in this way as a lay person in the world, that it's not running away from the world to say, turn off the TV news and just sit with the Lord for a minute. I'm not avoiding it. It doesn't help anybody that I'm watching. You can kind of have a false sense of participation, especially because we have television and we have all these devices, and that it doesn't mean that I'm not in the world or loving the world, or to just turn it off and sit with Jesus for a minute. I mean, he'll put up with me for a minute if I'll just put up with him for a minute. So
Yes.
am I getting what you're saying, or?
Yes, absolutely. And Also what was coming to me, a sister was talking when you were sharing about how God's always with us. He's constantly calling us. And, there's always that invitation to that encounter with him. It has to show itself in the concrete choices that we make in our daily lives. So with what you're talking about right now too, are we running away from something in order to, I am freely choosing to turn my gaze towards the Lord at certain times. And so that's the same thing that's being engaged in this search for God, where people are going through their lives and they feel this absence. It's like, where is he? I know that he's there, and I know that the encounter will come. And in our own lives, and it's like based off of that intellectual formation that I have, knowing that God thirsts for a relationship with me and I thirst for that with him, I then start to make the choices that are going to allow me to learn how to abide in him constantly. So sometimes that's going to look like shutting the news off because silence is so necessary to hear the voice of God, as we know, and we don't do that often enough. So there's a self-discipline and there's a denial of, right? Because if I'm choosing one thing over another, there's a denial of something, but I'm trying to choose the greater good and what God is calling me to at that moment. So so it's great that you turn the television off. And
no, that was theoretical. That's something I'm planning to do someday, sister.
Okay.
That was completely hypothetical.
We'll pray for that. It's just around the bend.
Sister Maria Goretti and Sister Regina Marie are sisters, are Carmelite sisters from north of us in Alhambra, California, ready to take your calls if you have questions about that encounter that Sister mentioned, of the presence of God, living grounded in the presence of our God. You can do it, and we have two experts here to help us. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884.
We're here for you. Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Beyond Damascus with Dan Demite and Aaron Richards is our show for young adults.
Everybody's talking about encounter. Everybody's talking about that mountaintop experience. What we fail to often talk about is what happens after. What happens beyond that Damascus moment?
Jesus Christ is calling all of us to be missionary disciples, disciples of Jesus who are on mission to bring the kingdom of God here and now on this earth.
Beyond Damascus with Dan Demite and Aaron Richards, Saturday at 8 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live on this Thursday, Groovy Thursday. We'll probably have a little groovy music in a little bit, and Jimmy Akin will be here, and we'll do open forum. Are you going to play the groovy music for the sisters, or we're too high? Oh, you are. Sarah will be playing the groovy music at some point this hour. The number is 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. You are welcome to call. I am, let me just update my call screener thing. I don't see anybody on the, oh, I do. We have a couple callers. All right. But we'll get to them in a second, because I still want to ask you, sisters, some things. You can call sisters if you'd like to ask. Maybe you have a question about the life of a religious, a Catholic religious. Those calls would be very, very welcome. 888-318-7884. I'm trying to get from you practical help for the person who says, I am overwhelmed. I'm busy. I cannot pay the bills. That person is so in the world. I do think that the temptation, or maybe just the assumption, is I'll get to Jesus later, or I know he loves me, but I've got all these obligations right now. What do you say to that person?
He's there.
Yeah.
He's where?
Right where you are. He's right under the stack of the bills that are really making you have a stroke.
Yeah.
He is right there. He wants to be brought in to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
There's nothing outside of his interest. If it interests you, he cares about it. And he wants to be brought in. When he said, "Come to me, all you who are laboring and burdened, I will give you rest," he wasn't joking. He wants to be that involved with our concerns of sick children, mortgage payments, alcoholic family members. bring everything to him.
What about the things that I'm ashamed of, in the sense that, like we spoke about this a little bit before, sister, that there's so many things I think that become a kind of consuming obsession for people. Some of them sinful, some of them maybe not sinful in themselves, but because I watch, every episode of all the Real Housewives shows. Well, there's probably nothing sinful about watching a TV show, but do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We fill up our mind with certain things. Mostly, I don't know what but I think it's partly searching for some satisfaction in a very unsatisfying world. So I've got all this shame too, sister. There's things that how do I present that to Jesus? He doesn't want that.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Yeah, he does. It's the whole, it's in our DNA, because Adam and Eve, what did they do? They ran and they hid. They ran in the forest.
Right.
They ran among the trees. They clothed themselves with fig leaves. And it wasn't because God was mean or angry. It's because they felt the shame. But the answer, the remedy, the medicine is to turn back to our Father and just open our hands and show him. It's hard for us to believe that he is so good, that he is merciful, and that he is powerful, and that he wants us. We still think we have to earn it and kind of get our act together a little bit and clean it up.
Yeah, it is hard to get over that. Really hard to get over that.
But those of you that are parents, how did you feel when that little sick child was put into your arms, or that totally vulnerable baby?
Yeah.
Total acceptance. It's yours. He belongs to you.
Yeah.
That's a faint inkling of how God feels towards us, even when we want to cover in shame. Turn back to our Father. Call him out. Call his name.
I'm glad that you say that about parents, because I think a lot of parents, we do have that. There's a certain kind of, and I imagine you get it in the community of sisters, but when you love a child and the child fails or, breaks something, or you do have it's almost like, there's a metaphor there that unless I had lived it with this kid, I wouldn't get it, that God loves me in this way.
Yes.
And I would actually try to say, I want to remember this, God, that, next time I'm the one who breaks something, or that I'm as safe with you as my kid is with me.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about you, sister? You got anything you want to tell us about, just practical for the person who, because you both devote your lives, all the sisters there, you devote your lives to being present to Jesus. That really is what you do.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
And
Yes.
helping everybody else
Well, that's it. Yeah.
come close to Jesus. Our closeness to Jesus is not based out of our vocation to be Carmelites. It is based out of the grace of baptism.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
You are a child of God. Your DNA is divine. That icon, famous if you Google Russian icon Trinity.
Oh, the Rublev. I know the one you're talking about. I think we have it here on a wall somewhere here.
All right, and so there are three, they're each inclining to each other, but the table where they sit is open.
Oh, I never thought about that.
That's for you, because because you're baptized, you belong to the family of the Trinity. This is your home. You do not use the doorbell. It's your home. You have free entry into your home.
I love that image of that, because we do think we have to use the doorbell. We really do. I got to do all these things, and once I get done with the first Saturdays, and then all the first Fridays, and then I'll probably move on to the first Thursdays and Tuesdays. Once I get all that done, then I'll be welcome with.
And he's saying,
with
"Come
God.
home.
Yeah.
You belong. You're mine.
Yeah.
I dwell with you. I never leave you. I can't take my eyes off you."
Yeah. See, I believe it when you're saying it to me, sister. It's when I walk out of here, am I still going to believe
Yeah.
it?
For us too. When we walk
Do you
out
feel
too.
that way? The struggle continues to maintain that sense of trust in that fatherly love of God.
Absolutely.
Really?
And I think each and every one of us,
But that's why-
we haven't arrived. Actually, when you mentioned when you said that we're here with a couple of experts, I have to admit that I kind of interiorly I started to kind of giggle and laugh and smile, because I thought, we're in the same struggle that you all are in too. Now we have the blessing. I mean, the life that we live, we're surrounded by a life rhythm that includes substantial time of prayer with the Lord, and which is such an amazing gift to us.
Right.
And we're still human. We're
Yeah.
absolutely still human. So we're still fully engaged in that struggle as well. Go ahead.
Well, just as you're saying it, I'm thinking you're the vocation director for the sisters, and I imagine that what you just said would be very helpful to any young woman who might be thinking, I'm probably not the type for these. I wish I was that type, but I'm probably not that type. But do you have to help people through that sometimes? Like, yeah, you are the type for this.
Come have one meal with us.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
really?
the authenticity of realizing, and that's one of the things that, okay, so I'm going to be a little bit biased, right? But one of the things that I love about our religious family is the authenticity of our sisters.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The family spirit that we have and the authenticity.
So you're saying it's not just holy rollers, is what you mean? Like it's real, authentic humanity.
This
that you
is
share.
real, authentic humanity.
And guess what?
Yep.
When you talk about, well, aren't you always in this state? Well, no, but we nourish ourselves from the same sacraments.
Yep, we do.
Oh yes, that's
So-
that's helpful. Yeah.
So every morning, we need to be fed again by the Word of God and by the Eucharist, and we go to confession regularly, and we are restored and refreshed and renewed. This is not unique to sisters. This is the common gift of the children of God.
It's open to everybody, all of those graces.
That's all right. I'm going to try really hard not to forget this when I leave this room.
And you have a guardian angel that is
I do, yes.
that is
right.
given to guide you.
Yes.
You have patron
Right.
saints who are given to guide you.
Yes.
You have our
I
Blessed
think
Mother.
mostly their job is to correct me, sister, but
No, their job is to
Listen,
love you.
That's
oh,
right.
God bless you. Thank
Their
you for
job
saying
is
that,
to love
sister.
you.
And to remind you of the truth.
Amen.
Yeah. We do have some people that'd like to speak with you. Would you be willing to take some calls?
Absolutely.
All right,
We'd
let's
love
go
to.
let's go to Chicago. We'll start with Diane in Chicago, Illinois, listening on the EWTN app. And if you can't hear the call, just let me know. We'll make sure you can hear
Thank
the calls.
you.
But Diane in Chicago, you there with us?
Yes.
Hi, Diane. Go ahead with your question for Sister Maria Goretti and Sister Regina Marie.
Oh, sisters, I'm not a good speaker, but I'm a mother of 6 children married and 14 grandchildren, a widow, and I feel lost. I don't know what happened in the last couple of months. I go to Mass every day. I also frequent confession. I say the rosary every day. I won't miss the chaplet. And I'm prayerful, very prayerful, and that I love, and I am faithful to it. I love it, and that's when I'm only at peace when I'm kind of in prayer. And other than that, I'm kind of going haywire. I'm so authentically full of anxiety. I just wondered what you'd have to say about that. I have too much anxiety, like at night. I wake up in the morning and I feel nervous. My arms feel nervous. I don't know what this is. I think I don't know if it's a devil or whether it's just a period that I'm going through.
Sisters?
I don't know, but this is what I do. Sister Maria Goretti might have something else. When I'm feeling anxious, I actually ask Jesus to come into my anxiety with me. So it's as if I'm in a storm and I'm in a boat, and I don't want to be in that boat all by myself. So I ask Jesus, come be with me. Come be in my bloodstream, because my bloodstream is feeling really anxious. Come be with me.
Hello?
Are you,
Hello?
Did we lose you, Diane?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything. I'm so sorry.
Oh. I think we have a technical problem. Oh, that's awful. Diane, you're going to have to probably go back and listen to it. But do you know why she didn't hear anything? Because I heard it.
I hear you now.
Well, let me ask you Sister, will you talk to Diane again, and we'll see if you...
Diane, I don't know if this will help, but this is
Can
what
you
I
hear
do.
her, Diane?
No.
All right, hang on. I'll solve this.
That's great.
Diane, can you hear me now?
Sister, I can hear you now.
I'm so glad.
Perfect.
I don't know if this will help,
Oh, my.
but this is what I do when I feel anxiety, and it's a creepy feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
I ask Jesus to come into the anxiety with me. I imagine myself on a boat, and I'm in a dark place, and I'm getting tossed around, and I ask him to come calm the storm, come help me sleep, come be with me in this bed.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Diane, we got to take a quick break, but I'm going to let you, if you'll hang on, I'll let you continue your conversations with the sisters because I'd like to get your response.
Sure.
We'll figure out if we get this technical problem solved. We'll
Should
be right
I
back.
hang on then?
Yes, please hang on.
Should I
Right
hang-
back.
Okay.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Dr. David Anders here. Where is purgatory in the Bible? Why confess my sins to a priest?
Find out more tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on Call to Communion.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. It's Easter week, and hallelujah, the Lord is risen. And I hope you're enjoying the joy of Easter week, most especially many prayers and also invitations to call to those of you who came into the church this week, those of you who helped them into the church this week, and those of you who prayed for those who helped them into the church this week. What a great week for the church. So many wonderful new brothers and sisters that we have now. Second hour, Jimmy Akin's going to be here, and we'll do open forum. You can ask him whatever you want. This hour, we welcome two wonderful guests that we've had here at the Apostolate at Catholic Answers today, have come for a visit with us, and then going out to do a talk tonight. We're going to run you ragged by the end of the day, and that's because Chris Check is in charge of your schedule. I want you to know that anybody who gets Chris Check in charge of their schedule for the day, you just surrender to the Lord because you are going to be busy. Our guests are Sister Maria Goretti and Sister Regina Marie from the Carmelite Sisters of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus in Los Angeles.
Very good.
I got an A on that. All right. You keep working and you'll do all right. We're talking with Diane in Chicago, saying that, despite living a prayerful life, Diane often feels an intense sense of anxiety, especially at night. Diane, you were able to hear Sister's answer. I just wanted to come back to you and see if you had a follow-up question or if you're satisfied with what Sister said.
No, I thought she was going to say something else. I was anxious to hear something more, but I loved what she said. It was wonderful. Does she have anything else to say to me?
Other than he cares and your anxiety is important to him and he's concerned and you ask him to come into it.
You have to say it again, sis. You have to what?
Just ask him, invite him into the anxiety.
Oh, invite him in.
Invite him into it. Ask him to carry it with you, carry it from you. It's amazing what his presence does.
It's amazing what his presence does.
Amen.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much,
And
sister.
I will
I'm
pray
gonna
for you.
do
So
that.
will Sister Maria
Yeah,
Goretti.
so we'll both be praying for you very much.
Yes, I love the Carmelites so much. I'm near the ones in Des Plaines. I live in Libertyville, but I said Chicago just because I figured they didn't know Libertyville. But
And you were right, Diane.
What?
I said, and you were right. We wouldn't have known Libertyville.
Yeah, the major seminary, though, in this area is University of St. Mary's of the Lake, and that's in Mundelein, right next door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well,
So
you got-
I'm over there. I've been blessed to be on these. I just anxiety. I just don't. I just hate it. I just don't understand it. But I think I'm asking too much. Maybe it's everyone goes through this at times in their lives. You know.
Well, for sure you're not alone.
Definitely not.
Oh, no. There's plenty.
Oh,
Diane.
that's-
Oh, excuse me. I think I cut Diane off. Diane.
No. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Diane. That was one of the most technically difficult calls we have ever executed here at Catholic Answers. I don't know why. Let's try Nebraska. Maybe it's working better. Our microphones are working better in Nebraska. Listening on Catholic.com. Dorothy in Nebraska. We're glad you called, Dorothy. Go ahead with your question for the sisters.
What I'd like to know is, I started doing the surrender prayer, and in that you have first read a paragraph of what Jesus is talking to you about, and then you say, "Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything." Does that sound like it would help?
It helps
help me.
everything.
Yes. I love the Surrender Novena
too.
very much so. In fact, I have lots of beautiful copies of it that I give out to the young ladies I have the privilege of walking with in the vocation office. So, yes, it's a very powerful prayer.
Oh, okay, that's what I was just wondering, because not too many, some people don't know about it.
But you
True.
felt it helps you, Dorothy. You have felt the help of God through it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. Yeah, I live alone, and I'm 90 years old, and I live alone, and I get pretty lonely sometimes, and I love working on my computer, and sometimes I think I do too much of that, and then I think, maybe I should spend more time with Jesus, and I don't know. I never know what's right.
Well, it sounds to me like you're on a good path.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Dorothy, thank you. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
God bless
Thank
you,
you
Dorothy.
so much.
Can I mention something?
Yes, please do, Dorothy.
Maria Goretti was a very favorite saint of mine a long time ago
Was she?
when I was just a young girl.
I love her so much. Yeah, she's touched many, many people's lives with her heroic witness and example. So I'm so glad to hear that you love her too. And I'll be praying for you very specially.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. What a lovely opportunity to get to talk with you. Our number is 888-318-7884. We've got a special treat this hour. Very encouraging, Sister Maria Goretti. Two sisters from the Carmelite Sisters of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus in Los Angeles.
Yes.
I am nailing this
Good
now.
job.
I am nailing this. Lisa in Pennsylvania, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM Satellite Radio. You are next, Lisa. Go ahead with your question for the sisters.
Well, thank you for taking my phone call. I'm enjoying listening to the sisters. I enjoy the Carmelite order. But my questions relate to prayer as I understand from St. Teresa of Avila. One is mental prayer, which I believe she said was the highest form of prayer, and then contemplative prayer, which, if I understood correctly, was a prayer where God invites us into. We don't take ourselves there. So if they could just explain that better, that would be great.
Have you ever heard of these two things, sisters? Mental and contemplative prayer?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, this is not the first you're hearing about this.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, either of you can go then.
St. Teresa of Avila would say that even when we pray vocally, when we say the Hail Mary, the Our Father, we want it to be mental.
Mm-hmm.
We want to put our heart to it. We don't want to just ramble off words. And that there will be a time when we will be able to pray without many words, but with much love. So we'll take a mystery of the life of our Lord. She appreciated seeing him in the agony in the garden, and she would mentally enter the picture, and she would go kneel by him to console him, to be with him. So mental prayer, it has heart. It's a way of loving God without the use of many words. Now, if we're using many words and we're not putting our heart in it, we're not praying. So, however, it's the heart and the mind. And contemplative prayer is exactly what you said. It's a prayer that our Lord invites, and he takes over. Mm-hmm. And usually there's some purification, because our little minds are like little squirrels in a jungle gym, and we're all over the place. So it takes time to take a concept, to take a thought, maybe to think about my baptism, that I'm a child of God, I'm a beloved daughter, or to imagine Jesus in the Jordan River being baptized and hearing the Father speak. We do our work to try to get all our little thoughts not so rambunctious and all over the place. But as we are faithful to that, the Lord moves in and he anchors us. And we just rest as a child rests in his father's arms, or as a child rests in her mother's arms. Mm-hmm. And he reveals what he wants to reveal. And there are many people who do not even know they're in contemplative prayer, because they're so humble, they're so ordinary, but they love the Lord.
Yeah. And the one thing, too, that's coming to mind while Sister's speaking, which she said, is that the contemplative prayer is a pure gift from God. He wants to see us, of course, putting forth the effort to be able to say, Lord, I care and I want to be with you. And so as we continue to put forth that concerted effort and that self-discipline and enter into prayer day after day, and in the beginning, she gives this beautiful image of water, the 4 waters of prayer, which you may be familiar with that. But in the beginning, we start off at a place where we feel like we're lowering a bucket into the well. And it's a lot of work to get that bucket up. It's really heavy. And then we have to take our heavy bucket full of water and walk it over to our garden, which represents our soul, and then pour the water into the garden. And that's what it can feel like in the beginning stages. And a lot slops out. You lose a lot of it on the way. You're probably stumbling, might end up in the mud. Who knows? But that's what it feels like in the beginning, though. It can feel kind of messy and all over the place. But then it starts to get a little bit easier. There's a water wheel, and oh my goodness, it's not quite as bad anymore. We're starting to get into a rhythm of prayer, starting to learn how to meditate a little bit better. And now there's an aqueduct, and there's a direct stream, going, that's bringing water into the garden. And then with the gift of contemplative prayer, this is where there's nothing that you can't make it rain, right? Like none of us can make it rain. Yes. And so she uses this beautiful image of rain, where that's the pure gift of contemplation, when it just starts to rain. And the Lord comes in and waters that garden without any effort on our part. And the beauty of that, though, is that, like what you were saying, how so many people are contemplatives and they don't know it. That gift of contemplative prayer can look as simple as I'm sitting before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in the church, and within myself, I experience a simple, loving awareness of his presence with me and within me, and I rest in that. That's a grace of contemplative prayer. our soul without any effort. So,
Lisa, does that all make sense to you?
Oh, it did, and it's the imagery is just beautiful, and I have read that. But separate question, if I may. I've heard of people speak of centering prayer as St. Teresa of Avila's contemplative prayer. Is that one and the same or not?
How would you?
I think we have to be careful about how we define centering prayer, because there's some techniques that are devoid of the presence of Jesus, which that's not Teresa of Avila.
Okay.
But there is an approach when you know that he is with you, he is at your center, and you're desiring to be at his center. That's fine. That is not contrary. Teresa has one really strong word of advice, and she says, in this process of learning to pray, go through vocal prayer, mental prayer, contemplative prayer, there's only one fatal mistake, and that is to give up. Don't quit.
Amen.
All right. Lisa, we have to do our break, so I'm going to say thanks. I hope that was helpful to you. We got a whole bunch more on the line. We'll try to get as many on as we can. Anonymous in Cleveland, don't go anywhere because we're going to get to you right when we get back from this break. Catholic Answers Live, more right after this.
Hello, this is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Keep your dial tuned to Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting by Great Catholic Music.
Great Catholic Music, your one-of-a-kind streaming platform for traditional Catholic hymns and contemporary favorites 24 hours a day. Music that soothes the soul, that's safe for the whole family to listen to. What a relief. Great Catholic Music. Download the free mobile app or listen on any Alexa-enabled device or write from your PC or tablet at greatcatholicmusic.com. Great Catholic Music. Melodies for the soul.
How are you listening to EWTN Radio right now? Have you ever wished you could listen on a local radio station? Maybe our Lord is speaking to your heart to help make that happen. Don't let a lack of experience hold you back. Find out how you can help start a Catholic radio station where you live. Powered by the truth of the Church and EWTN's dynamic radio programming. Email Steve at this address, radio@ewtn.com.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. And one thing I know for sure is that I can say Carmelite Sisters of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus in Los Angeles, because that is where our two guests are from, and I've mastered it. With only 15 minutes to go in the show, I have mastered it. Sister Maria Goretti, thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you.
And Sister Regina Marie, thank you very much for being here with us.
It's a joy.
And you're speaking here in San Diego tonight to a group that, and then does Chris have more for you tomorrow morning? He didn't? Oh, good.
Out.
Yeah, right. Get away from him. He will make you keep working. I got a group you can speak to. Let me call them up. And we're taking calls if you have questions, particularly about the spiritual life, about living in the generous presence of God, the fatherly presence of God. And up next, we go to Anonymous in Cleveland, Ohio, listening on 1260 AM. That's The Rock. Our friends at The Rock, 1260 AM in Cleveland. Anonymous, go ahead with your question.
Hi. First off, thanks for taking my call.
You're very
my question is, we're talking about the presence of God and an active prayer life kind of being an antidote to the anxieties or stressors or depression in the world. And for me personally, I struggle with those things, and it's been suggested to me that I try medication. And so what I wonder about that is the fact that I or a person would have to turn to medication kind of a proof that, this trying to be present to God and trying to make time for prayer doesn't work, or that I'm doing it wrong, or something like that.
Okay. So, Regina Marie?
Sure. The evil one wants to make you feel ashamed, wants to make you think you're a failure, and it has nothing to do with it. It has to do with biology, chemistry, and I would encourage you, if you are being suggested to take it, be open to it, and I would ask Jesus to come in with the medication. It's not either or. I eat every day. Jesus fills me with the Eucharist, but I still need to eat every day. There were some saints that never ate because they could live off the host. There's so many paths for each one of us. The dangerous thing is to ever think that God is being less good to you or you are failing Him, which is not true. You're seeking Him. You are desiring Him. Let Him lead the path.
Anonymous, how does that ring with you?
I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
All right. You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
The number is 888-318-7884. However, lots and lots of folks on the line, so I'm going to keep moving. Let's go to Connecticut. Gabriella in Connecticut, watching on YouTube. You are up next, Gabriella. Please go ahead with your question for the sisters.
Hello. My question is, I'm 14 years old, and ever since December, I've felt a strong desire to, religious life. I don't know, it just came up. And it's kind of scary because there are many things in my life that I aspire to do, but I don't know. It's just so beautiful, and I don't know how to trust God, where He'll lead me. It's just, there's something about it that it just makes me happy. And I don't know how to, trust God in this situation.
Well, let's get an answer for you, and then we'll come back and see if it makes sense to you, if you have a follow-up question. Sister?
Sure. So first of all, praise God that He's working so powerfully in your heart. Gabriella, that's really a grace that you're that open, that your heart is beginning to be moved. And, I'm 14 years old, towards the beauty of religious life. So you have a lot to thank Jesus for, because He's really moving and working in your heart. One of the beautiful things is that our Lord, Gabriella, is really present in the present moment, right where you are right now, and exactly what He's asking of you right now. And He's opening your heart, and He's obviously showing you the beauty of this wonderful life. And He also is inviting you to be at peace with exactly where He has you right now. And so as you begin to think about the future and all of the possibilities, and the possibility that, yes, He could be calling you to religious life, and that's wonderful. And I encourage you just to keep your heart open to whatever it is that the Lord wants. Because remember that if He does ask something of you, He's going to totally and completely provide the grace for you to be able to respond to that call to Him. So I want to encourage you, just so you know, it's totally normal to be afraid, totally normal to feel that fear and that little nervousness that you have in your heart. And I can share with you that I felt that too. Whenever I first started to think about a call to religious life, I started to feel a little bit nervous and a little bit apprehensive because, oh my goodness, this life is so different from the life that I know right now, and how is God going to make this happen? But what He's really wants us to do is to be able to just surrender, to be at peace, to receive the grace that He's giving us right now. And your greatest responsibility really is just to, as much as you can, build a relationship, a friendship with Jesus. And as you continue to move along in your journey and move forward, just keep your heart open to whatever it is that the Lord might be inviting you to. But for right now, I would say to as much as you can, just be at peace. Thank Jesus for the graces that He's really giving you, and ask Him for the grace to keep an open heart and to just keep building a deeper and deeper friendship and relationship with Him. And basically just tell Him, Lord, if this is really what you want, then don't stop asking. And I can promise you that He won't, that He will keep asking if that's really what He is inviting you to. So I just want to just say, do not be afraid and be at peace.
Gabriella, does that help?
Yes, it does.
Did you want to ask
Thank
anything
you.
else of Sister? You're okay?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that call. I'm sure there are many people praying for you right now. What a beautiful call. Let me go now. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go to Aaron in Dallas, Texas, also watching on YouTube. Aaron, we're glad you called. Go ahead with your question for the sisters.
Hi, Si. Hi, sisters. The question for you guys was just what really inspired you guys. I want to hear your stories on inspiration, on what made y'all or inspired you guys to take those vows to end up where you are at today. And that's really my questions. God bless you guys.
Thank you. You want to take this one? You want me to go first?
You go.
Okay. All right. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the grace of God. That's the gift of religious life is exactly that. It's a gift. It's a call from God. And as I was just sharing with the previous caller, for myself, when I first started to feel that call in my heart, there honestly was some fear there because I realized that Jesus was calling me really to a radical trust in him and to a radical gift of self to himself alone. And but for myself, really where that started, and I could think back even to being in high school where he was starting to create within my soul an infinite thirst for himself. And it started basically as a sense that I knew that the relationship he was drawing me to could never come to the end of its depth. It could never stop expanding or growing or becoming more profound, more beautiful, more intimate. And as that thirst in my own soul increased, I realized there's nothing on this earth that can satisfy that except for God. Like it was God alone suffices, like St. Teresa says. However, I still fought with that for a little while because I had my own plans for my life, which did not include religious life. And I had to, so I graduated from LSU in Baton Rouge. And the Lord made it clear during that journey when I was in college that it would be those vows, like that would be the means that he would use to actually to fulfill that desire of my soul for that infinite thirst for him alone, that he was asking me for, that he was asking for everything. And so that's like a super condensed version for me. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose it's like asking, how did you end up married? Well, you got to give the condensed version.
It's a super condensed version, but basically I fell in love.
That's even better condensed.
That's the best. Yeah. That's the best answer I can give you. I fell in love with him, and it's like nothing else would suffice. And it's like, so a vow of poverty, get rid of everything so that there's no impediment in my union with him. Absolutely. A vow of chastity so that he can be my spouse alone. And I can give my full heart and soul to him and receive him entirely as my spouse. You better believe it. Wow. And then obedience, right? You think about obedience, and that's the one where I was, okay, obedience. Yes, Lord.
Not so much.
But yes, I want to do the Father's will in all things. But
Sister Regina Marie?
Oh, I was never going to be a nun. Our sisters told us to pray 3 Hail Marys every night so we would know what our vocation is. And I knew that was really great advice for the other 54 kids in the classroom because I was going to get married to a guy just like my dad. And my mother's greatest complaint was that she could only have 3 children. And it was really easy. No way! And I was on retreat because I thought I'd gone to a Catholic slumber party. And I experienced the Father's love that I could never deny. And there was no turning back.
That's all right, Aaron? Do we still have Aaron?
Sorry, I just have you guys playing on my phone.
Oh, you got it.
Had it on me here. But yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys so much.
Oh, thank you, Aaron.
God bless you. God bless you.
This is the worst news yet. That's the end of that hour. What a fun hour for me. I hope it wasn't torment for you, but it was really fun to get to talk with you.
Great.
It was great.
120 sisters living together.
No. We're 120, but we have 7, 8 convents.
Oh, you're divided into 7 or 8 convents.
Can you imagine what that would be like?
No, I can. I literally cannot imagine what that would be like.
You do not want to.
Sister Regina Marie Gorman, you're going to be speaking tonight at the Legatus event. Thank you very much for being here with us.
My joy.
And Sister Maria Goretti, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you so much. It's a joy.
Yeah, and then have a good, safe drive back up there to Alhambra.
And let Chris know we missed him.
I will not. No, okay, I will. Coming up, 1 hour, open forum, Jimmy Akin right after this, Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. As promised, open forum this hour. Jimmy Akin, our guest. Jimmy, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, the author of A Daily Defense, 365 Days Plus One to Becoming a Better Apologist. Also the author of The Bible is a Catholic Book, and a whole bunch of other stuff, much of which you can find either available or mentioned at jimmyakin.com. You can find most of his books, or a lot of his books, over at shop.catholic.com. And of course, every Friday, Jimmy's got a new episode of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World that drops on the internet. And tomorrow, it is not the scary blue balls of electricity. That was last week. I have not gotten to that one yet, so don't give it away what it is. Tomorrow's episode, as Jimmy said, and we all remember yesterday, he said, I'm delaying because I cannot remember. I'm trying to remember what it was. Nobody in there will help. Jimmy, what's tomorrow's episode?
Animal Afterlife.
Oh, why did I not know Animal Afterlife? Why did I not? All I could get in my head was The Green Children, and that was weeks ago. But I don't know.
The Green Children were 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. All right.
And then we had Blue Orbs, and now we have Do Dogs Go to Heaven?
Well, there was a movie about that, I believe.
There was.
But you can't believe everything you see in the movie, so I don't know.
No, that's why it's important to consider the arguments and the evidence, which is what we're going to be doing.
That is your forte over there. That's what you do. It's the arguments and the evidence.
Mm-hmm. That's what I try to do. It also is helpful in being an apologist.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. 888-318-7884, the number. It's open forum. You can ask Jimmy whatever you like. We're pretty much full. Every single line's full at the moment. So I'm going to the phones, and we'll chat as we go along, you and me, Jimmy. Aaron in Hastings, Michigan is up first, watching on YouTube. Aaron, thank you for the call. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hey, hi, Jimmy. I appreciate your help yesterday, but I do have another question for you.
Okay.
How far is too far with honoring the saints to where it becomes idolatry?
Well, it's not idolatry, properly speaking, unless you start regarding the saints as deities. And as long as you recognize that they are just special human beings, then or special angels in the case of angelic saints, then you're fundamentally in the right ballpark. You haven't made a mistake of kind, which is really what proper idolatry is. It's mistaking something that is created or even non-existent for a deity. And as long as you recognize they're not deities, you're okay as far as errors of kind. But there are also errors of degree. And errors of degree occur when you place too much importance on something or too little importance. But in this case, you're asking about too much. And I would say that you are placing too much emphasis on honoring a saint if it does any possible number of things, but principally if it prevents you from having a spiritual life where you have your primary attachment to God rather than to the saints. That's not to say you necessarily need to feel more emotion regarding God than you do other people, because love, which is what's important here, is not really a matter of emotion. There is a feeling that we call love, but really love is recognizing and willing the good of another person. And so as long as you recognize God is infinitely good and the saints are only finitely good, then you're okay in terms of degree. But for example, if you spend all your time practicing devotions to saints, or to God for that matter, and it interferes with you making reasonable judgments about how you spend your time and living your life, then that's a problem. Then you're putting too much emphasis on something. This is a form of what can be called theologically superstition. Superstition is placing too much emphasis on something in such a way that it causes problems. And you can do that with the saints. If you spend all your time focusing on the saints and never any time focusing on God, well, that would be putting too much emphasis on the saints, relatively speaking. On the other hand, you can do the same thing with God. You can put so much emphasis on spending time on God that you can neglect things God actually wants you to do, like earn a living and take care of your fellow man and protect your family and spend time with your kids and stuff like that. If you were to spend, 18 hours a day in prayer and the remaining ones asleep, you wouldn't be living the kind of life that God wants you to live unless you are perhaps a cloistered religious person. So it's really, how much is too much is going to vary from person to person, depending on the inclinations that God has given you and the state of life in which you find yourself.
Okay, Aaron?
Okay, that does make a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. That's always nice when the caller says that makes a lot of sense. The number is 888-318-7884. I'm going to New Jersey now. Marie in New Jersey is listening at EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Marie, go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi there. Thank you very much for taking my call. I'm only calling because I've had this bother me most of my life, and I was married very young. I've had a lot of suffering and heartache in my life, and started out many years ago. I was married to somebody who didn't take the marriage seriously and ended up, I had no choice but to get a divorce. There was a lot of things that he did that were bad, and I had no choice, so I was pretty much the victim in that and didn't have any fault in that whole situation. Anyway, throughout my life, I've always felt like I've been excommunicated from the church, and feel very guilty about that, even though I wasn't at fault. And, years later, I had gotten remarried, but not in the church, because obviously you can't get married in the church once you've been married there already and not annulled. And I tried many, many years to get an annulment because I didn't want to contact him. I had no choice, but, they would not grant it for me. And I'm very, very spiritual and pray all the time and, just try to spread the good word of the Lord to friends and family as much as I can. And, so I just feel like, am I excommunicated if I have a strong devotion?
So you are not excommunicated. Excommunication is a penalty that applies to people who have committed certain ecclesiastical crimes, but getting divorced is not one of those crimes. So you are not excommunicated. Now, there's a separate question of, are you able to receive communion, Eucharistic communion presently? If you are currently married to someone civilly, and if, as a Catholic, if you're currently married to someone civilly and you are living a normal conjugal life, then you would not be able to receive communion right now because there's a situation that you need to get addressed. If you were, and it could be addressed in multiple ways. One way would be by living as brother and sister. Another would be by getting an annulment and having your marriage convalidated or blessed, to use the common terminology. I understand it, having gone through an experience like this, it could be delicate, contacting a former spouse or having the former spouse contacted for purposes of the investigation that the church needs to do as part of the annulment process. But I would focus on the goal. The goal in this situation is getting everything right with God. And that's the important thing. Being right with God and being able to fully experience Him in accord with the way we're able to experience Him in this life, including receiving Jesus and Holy Communion, that's the goal. And any difficulty or any emotional sensitivities involved in contacting the person, that's temporary. That's something you'll get past. It may be uncomfortable at the moment, but it is not uncomfortable in the long term. It's not going to be with you forever. And so if matters are, as you say, that the gentleman just did not take the marriage seriously and he did various things early on that indicated there was a fundamental problem with the marriage, then it should be possible to document those in a way that would give the marriage tribunal the basis it needs to declare the original marriage null, and at that point, you would be able to have your current marriage blessed and be able to live the Catholic life fully. It's wonderful that you're doing what you can. It's wonderful that you pray all the time and that you have devotion and that you try to spread the word about God and His Son. And, I would encourage you even further, keep going to Mass, even if you're not able to receive communion right now. Keep going to Mass, participate in as much of Catholic life as you're able. The Church wants you to do that. You're one of the Church's children. It doesn't want there to be this barrier. But fundamentally, in addressing the issue, I would say the goal of being fully open to God and fully right with God, that's something that that is just of infinite value. And so I would say work through the delicate matters, but do so realizing that the delicate matters will pass. You will not always have to deal with the discomfort involved in that, and that discomfort will ultimately pale in comparison of knowing that you're fully right with God and that you can fully participate in His love and the Catholic life He set out for us.
Marie, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that was helpful to you. Got to take our first break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with Jimmy Akin on Catholic Answers Live.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Do you have a question but prefer to ask it privately? Catholic Questions can help. Go to CatholicQuestions.com to ask your question online, email us, drop us a letter, or give us a call. Longtime Catholic Answers Live apologist and author Jim Blackburn or another Catholic Questions apologist will be happy to assist you. Catholic Questions proudly supports Catholic Answers Live, so visit us at CatholicQuestions.com today. That's CatholicQuestions.com.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
This is Prudence Robertson. Now more than ever, Americans need to know the facts about the science, the law, the politics, and the fight to end abortion in America. Through the lens of our Catholic faith, we can make a difference in this battle to protect the unborn.
EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, Sunday morning, 10 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I just realized something, Sarah. I don't think we ever played the groovy music for the sisters, and I think they were looking really forward to it. I'm not blaming you. We had some audio problems. There's no way that you could have done it. I'm just saying. The sisters didn't. We'll have to invite them back on a Thursday. They can get their groovy music. Jimmy Akin's our guest this hour. It's open forum. Ask whatever you like. 888-318-7884. Next, we're going to Midland, Michigan. Andrew, listening on Ave Maria Radio. You are up next, Andrew. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Well, hey, Cy and Jimmy. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. Really well, actually.
All right. Good. So I've been talking with a Presbyterian professor of mine. I'm a college student. Mm-hmm. And I know that Jimmy used to be Presbyterian, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you would happen to know, where he's coming from in his idea of, predestination, God chooses those who will be saved, and basically leaves the rest to be reprobate. And what's a good rebuttal to that?
Well, so I am aware of where he's coming from, and there are, in terms of a rebuttal, there have been rivers of ink spilled on this question, even within Protestantism. There is, most Protestants do not have a Presbyterian view of predestination. Now, the concept of predestination is mentioned in Scripture. There are a handful of passages where it uses a Greek term that does mean predestined or determined beforehand. But the question is, what's being determined in these passages and on what basis is it being determined? And Presbyterians or Calvinists typically look at these passages and they say, oh, well, what's being determined is whether a person will be saved or not, and there is no basis on which it's being determined. God is simply making a choice that, even though they won't say it exactly this way, that is essentially arbitrary. And both of those assumptions are open to challenge. If you actually look at the passages in question, frequently it is not salvation that is under discussion. It's not salvation that God is preordaining. Also, if you look at what the passages say, you will discover that they do refer to God having a basis on which he determines this predestination, such as how the person will freely cooperate with his grace. It may not use those terms, but it will indicate that God does so on the basis of what individuals are doing. What I would suggest is taking a look at an ebook that I wrote. It's not a long read. It's on Amazon, and it's called Chosen by God. Now, there are other books called Chosen by God, but if you go on Amazon and you look up Chosen by God by Jimmy Akin, you'll find that it's inexpensive, and it's a study of how the Bible and the early church fathers use the concept of God, of the chosen or the elect. Those two terms are the same in Greek and Hebrew. Something is a person who is chosen is a person who is elect. That's what elect means, is just chosen. And I go through the Old Testament and the New Testament and the early church fathers, and I show that that the way Calvinists speak about the elect or the chosen is not the way the Bible does. And so I think that would be a good starting point for you to look at. Wouldn't take a long time to read, but it would provide you with some additional biblical perspective that could be of use in dialoguing with this gentleman.
Andrew, thanks. I hope that was helpful to you. We're going now to Virginia. Anonymous in Virginia, watching on YouTube. You're up next, Anonymous. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy. Anonymous? Did I push the wrong button? Sometimes I do that. I pushed the wrong button. Sorry, Anonymous. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hey, my question for Jimmy is, did Neanderthals have rational souls? And I guess kind of as a follow-up, if they did, how do we reconcile that with the first couple, Adam and Eve? Thank you.
Okay, so with regard to the first question, essentially the answer is going to depend on what do you mean by rational soul. There is not, even though we commonly divide souls into, historically, we've commonly divided souls into three categories: rational, sensitive, and vegetative. In reality, each creature that God has made has its own kind of soul. And so it's not like all animals have the same exact type of soul. Some animals, like let's say a tardigrade. Psychella, do you know what tardigrades are?
They're like those little microscopic, water
bears.
Is that what I was going to say? Bears.
They're also called water bears, yeah. And they're little microscopic organisms, and they're tough as nails. They can survive loads of stuff, but being microscopic organisms, they're not very smart. They can sense their environment, but they can react to it only in fairly simple ways. And if you look and compare them, say, to a real full-sized bear, a very macroscopic organism, the macroscopic bear, let's say a grizzly or a black bear, has a lot more smarts. It's able to interact with its environment in much more complex ways. You can even teach bears tricks, and for a time it was common in circuses to have performing bears that had been taught various tricks, but you could never teach those tricks to a water bear, to a tardigrade. And so even though both of them have what would be called sensitive souls that allow them to feel things and interact with their environment in a way plants don't, it's clear that the soul that a bear has is going to be different than the soul that a tardigrade has. And in particular, it's going to be a lot smarter, also a lot bigger, and various other things. But they're going to have different kind of souls, even though they both fit in this same category of sensitive souls. Now, similarly, and so one other thing that also shows us is that rationality or intelligence is a spectrum. You can have, tardigrades have less intelligence than actual bears do. And so there's this spectrum of intelligence levels, which will map onto rationality in interesting ways. And if you're talking about very close human relatives, now our subspecies is Homo sapiens sapiens. Homo neanderthalensis, the Neanderthals, were very closely related to us, and they had lots of smarts too. They were definitely smarter than bears. They did things like make clothing and make artwork and make music and bury their dead with grave goods, it seems, which would indicate they have a concept of the afterlife. And so even if they're not quite as smart as us, they're very, very smart. And so it really depends, just like you can have multiple types of souls that are sensitive, you can have multiple types of souls that are rational. And so it's really going to depend on where you decide to draw the line at calling something rational. And given that, it could turn out, and I would suspect it would turn out, that Neanderthals had rational souls. Unless you have a really interesting understanding of what rational means, it's going to have to be highly technical and turn on fine points if you're going to say, well, no, Neanderthals weren't rational, despite the fact they made tools and clothing and artwork and music and buried their dead with grave goods, but still somehow they're fundamentally not rational. Really, there's a spectrum here, and it's just a question of where you draw the line. So I would suspect if we had Neanderthals today that we would fundamentally say, yeah, they're rational. They may not be quite as smart as us, but they're still fundamentally rational. In terms of how that would square with the idea of Adam and Eve as the original two humans, there are different ways it could square. Part of the issue here is we don't have a definition supplied to us in the Bible of what counts as a human being. We know we are human beings, but the Bible doesn't tell us precisely what that means. And so there would be different ways of looking at Neanderthals and saying, okay, well, maybe they were a race of humans in the biblical sense. If they had the concept of the afterlife and they may have believed in God or gods, they would have the principal elements of religion, and that would put them, you could argue, on the same side as us. They would count as biblical humans. On the other hand, in which case they would, if you take Adam and Eve as two literal historical figures, Neanderthals would then be descendants of Adam and Eve would have to go farther back in time. On the other hand, you could say, well, maybe Neanderthals are not biblical humans. Maybe biblical humans are only Homo sapiens sapiens, our subspecies. And in that case, the Bible doesn't have anything to say about Neanderthals one way or another, because it's only talking about biblical humans. And if you say biblical humans are just the same thing as our subspecies, then the Bible is only talking about our subspecies, and it doesn't address closely related species.
Anonymous?
Incidentally, we may have a test case for this. Now, of course, people could always clone Neanderthals, but I don't think that's likely anytime soon. However, what could happen sometime soon is the discovery that Homo florensis is still alive. You may remember, Cy Kellett, a number of years ago, there were reports that in Indonesia, the bones of another close relative were found, and because it was found on the island of Flores, it's called Homo florensis. And these people were very short in stature, and so they were sometimes called hobbits. even though they were from Indonesia instead of the Shire.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you go to the natives of Flores and you talk to them, they will say, actually, there are these little short people living in the forest that we occasionally see. And I'm waiting for a book to come out. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks from an anthropologist who has investigated all this, and he is of the opinion that Homo florensis may well still be alive in small communities. And if that's either that or it died only in the last 100 years. But if Homo florensis is still alive and is discovered, then we will have a test case that could force doctrinal development forward on the question of what is a biblical human, because we'll need to see what Homo florensis's minds are like and whether they are similar to enough to ours to put them in the same category as us.
Stay tuned. Can't wait to find out. Anonymous, thanks very much for the call. We'll continue with the open forum with Jimmy Akin on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com. Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
This is Dr. David Anders. Is God an angry God?
We answer questions like these every day on Call to Communion, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Little groovy music. Did the sisters leave the building? Are they gone? Did they miss the groovy music? I bet they're gone. The number is 888-318-7884. Jimmy Akin, our guest. It's open forum. I want to have a brief conversation on the air that we just had off the air, Jimmy.
Okay.
Because you said that you said two things. One, that in your view, that Neanderthals probably were rational creatures.
Right.
Creatures with rational souls.
Not necessarily as rational as us.
And then you said, well, somebody could clone them and find out. But that was a statement of fact, not a statement of what would be morally acceptable. Because if they were rational creatures, it would be immoral to clone them.
Correct. They would then be moral agents, and it would be a violation of their rights to clone them, just like it is a violation of rights to clone Homo sapiens sapiens.
However, now, just switching gears real quick, and this is just completely a personal question.
Mm-hmm.
If someone were rooting for them to bring back the woolly mammoth, there would be nothing. There's nothing immoral about that, right?
No, because mammoths are not moral agents. They fall into the category of animals, and therefore they do not have rights. And so it's perfectly legitimate to do genetic experimentation and cloning and things like that on mammoths.
All right, then I'm going to go back to wishing and hoping that woolly mammoth gets back here soon. Before I shuffle off this mortal coil, I'd like to see a real live woolly mammoth.
I mentioned another creature that in our conversation off air that we're likely to get back if they are not currently out there, which they may well be currently out there because there are reports of them, but at least officially the thylacine, which is an Australian marsupial. It's also called a Tasmanian wolf or a Tasmanian tiger. It actually looks like a dog, but it's got stripes on its hindquarters, so that's why they call it a tiger, even though it doesn't look like a cat. It looks like a dog, which is why it's called the Tasmanian wolf. But thylacines, apparently, at least according to the official account, the last one died in a zoo in the early 20th century. But there are reports of them still being out there. However, there are people who are interested, if they're not still out there, in cloning thylacines and bringing thylacines back. And because of how recent they are, we've got museum specimens, we've got, their DNA available to us. And so, and it might be easier to clone a thylacine than a full-grown mammoth. But I suspect we're likely to have both of those species back in the future.
Nice. I do not want the saber-toothed cat back. I don't. Who wants to live on a planet with saber-toothed cats? Not me. But those other two, I'd be happy to have those. Christian in New Jersey, you're up next. Christian watching on YouTube. Go ahead, Christian, with your question.
Hi, Jimmy and Ty. How are you? Happy Easter.
Oh, happy Easter. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you. I just want to say that Jimmy, Cy, Catholic Answers, I love you guys. You guys are a great blessing to my life. I learned so much from you guys. I love your work.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you. So, Jimmy, I have a two-part question, basically. In the Gospel of John, Jesus did not allow Mary Magdalene to touch him because he did not ascend to the Father. But a few verses after that, he allowed St. Thomas to touch him. I would like to know the theological reasons as to why that is. And my second question is pertaining to the Shroud of Turin. What would be the best arguments to defend the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin when people bring up stuff like carbon dating? Thank you so much.
Okay, so in regard to the first question, why Jesus told Mary Magdalene not to touch him in some translations, people ask that question a lot, and especially around this time of year. I wonder why. The answer, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty straightforward. The term in Greek that is used there doesn't just mean touch. It can also mean things like cling. And so if you think about what's the emotional roller coaster that Mary Magdalene has just been on, she saw her Lord, who she loved, die on a cross, which was a devastating experience. She's come after resting on the Sabbath to, tend to his burial needs. She's bringing spices with the other women to bury with him. And then his body's not there. And this makes the situation even worse. It's a huge blow. Not only has she seen her Lord tortured to death, but now his body has been stolen. And so she is there in the garden weeping, and Jesus speaks to her, and when she turns and recognizes him, she is naturally elated. She's thought that she had lost him forever, and now he's back. She hasn't lost him after all. But Jesus knows what she doesn't, which is he's going to be ascending to heaven. So she's going to lose him again. He will not always be there on earth the way he has been. And so even though, yes, she has him back for now, he's not going to be here forever. And so I think essentially what he's doing is he's warning her not to think that he's not going to leave. And so that's why he says, in essence, don't cling to me, because I have yet to ascend to my Father. And so he's saying, don't think that you have me forever, because you don't. I still have to ascend to my Father. So I think that's what's going on there. In terms of the second question, the subject of the Shroud of Turin is a subject that I'm still studying, and I will be addressing it on Mysterious World, but I've got a lot of research to do first. And by the way, for everyone who saw the story today about a new method of dating the Shroud, already on it, already aware of it, got the link. Thank you so much. But I try to approach mysteries as neutrally and as objectively as I can. And the fact that there have been that there in the 1980s there were carbon-14 tests that indicated a medieval date for the Shroud is a significant thing. Now, I know there are counter arguments to that. In my research, I will be taking both the arguments and the counter arguments seriously. But at this point, I have not yet worked my way through that material. And so I would not consider myself to be in a position to say, well, these are the best arguments for defending the authenticity of the Shroud, nor would I at this point be at the conclusion that the Shroud is definitely authentic. I try to be genuinely open-minded. I would love the Shroud to be authentic, and I would love for the evidence for that to be so clear I could use it as an apologetic argument. But I have to be honest with the evidence, and I'm not going to bend the evidence just to make it fit my preferred views. And so I'm afraid on that question I'd have to say, check back after I've had a chance to thoroughly research it and present it on Mysterious World.
Thanks very much, Christian, for the questions. And that's news to me. I didn't know that news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a new dating technique that has been applied. It doesn't involve, it's not radiometric dating. It doesn't involve radioactive decay. Instead, it looks at the amount of breakage in cellulose fibers. The problem is this is a brand new proposed dating technique. It has only been applied to a handful of things, and even though the people who've done it have found promising results, it needs to be cross-checked against other things. And so even though it's exciting news and interesting news, it's not something that we should bet the farm on at this point, because it's a brand new dating method. And until it's proved out by multiple independent researchers, so we have replication from people who aren't in the same group of researchers, we can't put a huge amount of weight on it. We need to see it proven out.
Thanks again, Christian. Hey, I haven't gotten a chance to mention it during this program, but I do want to remind you again that we've got a special deal on the Catholic Answers Conference coming up in September. It's 1,000 people going to get together and talk about Christ in the Eucharist. And Tim Staples, Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Carla Broussard, Joe Heschmeyer, all of them will be giving talks there about different aspects of the theology or the history of Christ's presence in the Eucharist. Bishop Thomas Papraki's coming. He's going to give the keynote address. Dr. Lawrence Feingold will be there. Simone Rizkala. We're really looking forward to this, and we'd love you to be there. So it's $50 off right now if you use the promo code EARLY at CatholicanswersConference.com, CatholicanswersConference.com. Use the promo code EARLY, and we'll see you in September 22nd through 25th.
Hang on, Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Go forth and preach the good news. It's not just a suggestion. If you want to take more seriously the command of Jesus to share the gospel with those around you, consider joining St. Paul Street Evangelization. It's a grassroots organization that brings the Catholic faith to the streets in a non-confrontational way. Visit our website, www.streetevangelization.com, to learn more. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. It's time to do our part.
Wherever you are in the world, you can access the EWTN Global Catholic Network. It's everywhere. You can get EWTN's great Catholic programming on your car radio, at home on your TV, computer, or smart speaker. With EWTN's app, you can take EWTN everywhere on your phone or mobile device. If you want your news in print, turn to EWTN's paper of record, the National Catholic Register. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Holy smokes. That was the last break. I just realized how late it is. Holy smokes.
Yep.
Having fun with Jimmy Akin. It's open forum. I better get back to the phones. Kiara in Atlanta, Georgia, listening on the Catholic Answers app. Thanks for downloading the app onto your phone, Kiara. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you guys so much for taking my call. I've been listening to Catholic Answers, pun intended, religiously for about the last 2-3 weeks.
Oh, we got you.
Oh, new listener. Cool.
Yeah, you sure did. So, quick backstory. I know I'll make this quick. I was born agnostic and found Jesus about 10 years ago, baptized about 6 years ago. And like I mentioned, about the last 2-3 weeks, I've really just been learning a lot and falling in love with the truth of the Catholic Church.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I'm about to go through RCIA or start that in a couple weeks. But my question to you guys is, what resources or advice do you have to learn more about like the split between the Catholic and Protestant churches?
Well, I guess as a general resource, I would recommend Catholic.com. We have loads of free resources available online. Some of them are text articles, some of them are podcasts, and some of them are videos. Like we have all the videos for Catholic Answers Live there, and I would do some searching on Catholic.com and see what resources come up. In terms of a particular resource as a starting point, since obviously there's tons of books that have been written about this, and I'm sure you're not looking for a mountainous library just on this one subject. But in terms of a starting point, I would suggest, and Sai, let's see if we can send this to Kiara, a short 20 answers book that I wrote called 20 Answers Protestantism. And from a Catholic perspective, it goes into the history of the split, as well as information about different Protestant groups and interactions with Catholics and things like that.
Okay, Kiara?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's a Catholic radio station there in Atlanta, the Quest. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
I think it's 11 something on the dial, maybe 1160 on the dial. So just in case you're out driving or whatnot, and you want to check it out, because I know we're on there in the evening. So thanks. Well, I hope you'll go ahead.
Also, and this isn't out yet, but but one resource that I would definitely recommend as soon as it's available is so we have this online School of Apologetics, which you can find out more about by going to schoolofapologetics.com. And we just taped 2 courses, Church History 1 and Church History 2, by Steve Weidenkopf, who is one of the authors for Catholic Answers Press, and he also teaches for the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics. And I've been through the material in the editing process for both of his courses. They are both really good. And the second course, Church History 2, does cover the split with Protestantism. And so I would suggest that as a resource once that becomes available.
Kiara, I'm going to leave it there and say thanks. Hang on. We'll get Edgar will get your information and we'll send you the book. Lots of folks on. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Also call in anytime you've got questions. We'd love to help you out whenever we can.
Chad in Colorado Springs, Colorado, watching on YouTube. You are up next, Chad. Go ahead with your question, please, for Jimmy Akin.
Thanks for taking my call. Hey, Jimmy, I have a couple of follow-up questions to the answer that you gave me yesterday to my question about Jeremiah 33:18. So just for the listeners, I asked this question about this verse where it talks about how there's going to be perpetual burnt offerings and sasacrifices
I remember.
forever. Mm-hmm. And you gave, I think, like three main answers. One was
Chad. You know what? Let's not. I think we better not review them because we're getting near the end. So if you want to just give Jimmy the question.
Yeah. So your answer was that one of your answers was that the prophecy is conditional, and you gave
prophecy
like
often is conditional.
It's often conditional, yeah.
Yes.
So my question pertains to, there's this verse in Deuteronomy 18 where it says, it's the test of a true prophet, and it says, how can we know when a message has not been spoken by the Lord? If what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Lord does not take place or come true, that is a message the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. And so it doesn't say here, if what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Lord doesn't come true, then you can just assume that it was conditional upon something. So I'm wondering, how do we tell the difference between prophecies that didn't come true because they're conditional and prophecies that didn't come true because they're not from God?
I think that the difference is, or the relevant distinction here is one that in science, it's called the difference between proof-oriented research and process-oriented research. Proof-oriented research is where you are trying to establish that a phenomenon is real. You're trying to prove that this phenomenon exists. And then process research is what you do after you've proven it exists to figure out how it works. And I think that basic distinction is something that's relevant here. The question in Deuteronomy is specifically, how can we know if this guy is a prophet? How do we know if he's talking from God? And I think that if a prophet says, okay, here's how I'm going to prove to you that I'm a prophet, there's a sign that God is appointing. It's going to happen tomorrow as proof of the fact I am really talking to him. If it doesn't happen, then that's evidence he wasn't talking to God. On the other hand, if you have a prophet who has been demonstrated to be right many times in the future, and he says something that's typically a warning as opposed to a sign, that's another distinction that's relevant here. The difference between a signs are offered as proof of something, and then warnings or promises of blessing are different than signs. I would say if he's offering a warning or a blessing, it shouldn't be treated as if it's a proof-oriented sign, and it may well be conditional. And so if you have an established prophet who gives you a warning or a blessing promise, you should understand those to be conditional. However, if he's offering you a sign to show you that he's a genuine prophet, then those should not be understood to be conditional, but as dispositive evidence of whether or not he really is a prophet.
Okay, I'll have to think about that. Do you have time for one more really quick follow-up question?
Real quick.
Okay. So you talked also as well about verse 17 where it says, it gives this prophecy where David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. And presumably, as Catholics, you guys believe that prophecy came true. And so is there any...
In Jesus, yes.
Yeah. So is there any exegetical basis for saying that verse 17 wasn't conditional, but verse 18 was? Because it seems kind of strange to me that if verse 18 is conditional, then that it wouldn't be conditional upon the same condition that verse 17 is conditional upon, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to be very brief about this because we have other people we need to get on before the end of the hour. You're welcome to call back in the future and discuss this more, but I don't see, I haven't studied this passage in depth yet, but I don't see an exegetical basis for saying that if we're to understand why there aren't Davidic kings here on earth, or why there aren't active Levitical priests here on earth. There are Levitical priests, they're just not doing sacrifices. I don't see a basis for saying in the text for saying that they're conditional on different things. Presumably in both cases, it would be the sins of the people in general, or the Davidic monarchs, or the Levitical priests that would be what resulted in these promises not having a literal fulfillment. However, as I pointed out, I think fundamentally, as I pointed out yesterday, I think fundamentally prophecy is often fulfilled in unexpected ways that are superior to what people would have expected. And I think in both cases, these prophecies have been fulfilled in unexpected but superior ways. And if God gives you something superior to what you thought, Cy Kellett, what's the thing to do? What do you say to God if he's given you something better than what you expected?
Thank you, God.
There you go.
Thanks, Chad. I am going to keep moving just because we got to get, we have still several people to get to. So let's start with Joe in Kansas City, Missouri, listening on 106.1 FM. Joe, if you could be quick, go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, Joe.
Hey, so I have been kind of going back in time and uncovering truths about the Eucharist from a Protestant perspective. And somehow I missed until now the Road to Emmaus story, where, it's kind of a three-part story where Jesus then reveals himself as he breaks the bread and then vanishes. So among Catholics, is it pretty widely known that that's what that story represents in that moment? And then also, have you heard any interesting Protestant kind of explanations for that? Because I can't think of one myself.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, I've certainly heard Catholics point to the breaking of the bread after the encounter on the road to Emmaus as an example of the Eucharist. However, I think that's a very tenuous idea. Normally, in ordinary speech, both then and much later, including today, breaking bread with someone just means having a meal with them. So these two people, one of whom is Clopas, but these two men have met Jesus on the road, and they don't recognize him. So they do not know he's Jesus. They also aren't believers in the resurrection at this point, because they say some of our women came and reported this strange tale, but they're not, at this point, believers in the resurrection. So they don't believe in the resurrection yet. They don't know this is Jesus. They think he's just a traveler. And so as it's getting late in the day, they say, why don't you stay tonight with us, which was part of ancient Near Eastern hospitality. You had a traveler, it's getting dark, so he's not going to be able to get to the next town, so you invite him over and you feed him a meal. You break bread with him. It seems to me more likely that that's all that's going on here, that they're not trying to consecrate the Eucharist. They probably weren't at the Last Supper when Jesus consecrated the 12 as priests. So they probably don't have the power at this point to consecrate the Eucharist, much less as non-believers in the resurrection. Are they likely to sit down and say, hey, let's do this Christian sacrament? It seems historically unlikely that these guys would be doing that given their present state of belief. It's not till they recognize Jesus that their worldview is revolutionized. So the way I would take it is they invite him over as part of standard hospitality. They start feeding him a meal. In other words, they break bread with him. And during the course of the meal, they suddenly recognize him. Their eyes are open and they realize all this resurrection stuff is true.
You know what, Joe, I'm going to leave it there because I really do want to get one more person on at least before I have to go. Stefan in Chicago, Illinois. Real quick, what's your question for Jimmy?
Hi, hello, thank you so much. Christ is risen. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
My question is, why do Eastern Orthodox celebrate the Easter this Sunday? And if Mr. Aiken, do you have any opinions on the Holy Fire? If it's true or if it's a scam?
All right, hang on, Stefan. Let's start with Easter.
So the reason that some Eastern Christians celebrate Easter at a different time than other Christians do is because they're using the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar was put in place by Julius Caesar, and the problem with the Julian calendar is it slightly misestimates, very slightly, but it slightly misestimates the number of days in a year. And so as a result, over the centuries, the Julian calendar started to drift out of sync with the seasons. And that caused Pope Gregory XIII to revise the calendar, giving us the Gregorian calendar that we use now. And so Christians in the West have just traditionally used the Gregorian calendar, but those in the East, some of them have continued to use the Julian calendar, and that's responsible for the difference in the dates of Easter.
Stefan, thanks. That's all we'll be able to do today. Tomorrow, guess what? Third day in a row. Jimmy's back. We're going to do... I I think we're going to do
questions.
Easter weird questions. Oh, that'll be a good.
That's the plan.
The plan is Easter weird questions for Friday tomorrow. We'll see you then, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.